Hi, this is Gejo, and we're going to look at a CAT 2018 slot 1 LRDI set. It's about written test. So in this you have a missing data question. This particular set has two challenges. One is a bit time consuming. You'll take a little time in terms of making all the inferences. Number two is these are the kind of sets where you're prone to make silly mistakes. You have to be very careful. Right. Let's look at the story. This says. A company administers a written test comprising of 3 sections of 20 marks each: data interpretation, written English, and GA. So DI, W, and GA. So those are the 3 things that we can see there in the data set. And each is 20 marks each. So the marks out of 20. So 8, 16. So these marks are actually given there out of 20. For a certain set of candidates, and it says the composite score for the candidate out of 80 is calculated by doubling the marks in DI and adding to the sum of the marks in the other 2 sections. So you have to double these marks plus this. So the total score. So what is the composite score? The composite score would be equal to twice of the DI score plus the WE score plus the GA score. For instance, if you multiply that by 2, that'll be 30 plus 7 plus 10. That composite score for Falak is going to be equal to 47. So that's one piece of information that we have. And then he says that candidates who score less than 70% marks in 2 or more sections is disqualified. So if you scored less than 70% mark, 70% of 20 is a score of 14. If you're scoring less than 14 in 2 sections, then you are disqualified. For example, Bala's case, he's got less than 14 in 2 sections, he's going to be disqualified. And even in the case of Falak, 2 section is going to be disqualified. And some people are going to be qualified. So it would be better to think of who are the people who will be qualified. The people who will be qualified are the one who will get a score at least 14 in 2 or more sections. Okay, so the other way to look at it is to say that they have to get at least a score of 14 in 2 more sections. So you can see Jatin who's qualified there. You have Esther who's qualified there, and some people we know already has qualified. For example, Ajay, it depends upon this particular score in WE for him to qualify, and Harini, it depends upon these 2 scores. In Indu's case, it depends upon these 2 scores whether or not Indu would qualify. And then from among the rest, which means we are talking about disqualified, the rest would be those who are qualified. Among the rest, so that means among those who are qualified, 4 of the highest composite score are recruited. Now there is a recruitment that is also happening, which is from those who are qualified. You're looking at the top 4. The top 4 of those who have qualified gets recruited, and it says if 4 or less candidates qualify, all who qualify had recruited. So the maximum number of people who can get recruited are 4 of them. So there are 3 pieces of information that you have to go with. One is the score. Second is those that qualify, that is greater than or equal to 14 in 2 or more sections, and then they picking up the top 4 candidates who will be recruited. And 10 candidates appear for the written test. Their marks in the test are given in the table below. Some marks in the table are missing, but the following facts are known. So you have the 6 facts to make the deduction about all these missing data. So that's what we'll have to do. What's going to happen in the actual exam, since CAT is an online test, you obviously will have to write down all this data on the piece of paper and then solve this question. Right, you obviously cannot. Had it been a paper-based test, then you could have actually filled in the data here. So there is an additional piece of time that is going to go for you to actually list down all this data point, and also putting one additional column to write the score, probably additional column to write who has qualified and out of which who got recruited. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do it like how you'll probably do in the CAT, actually listing down all these value, carefully noting this down, and then looking at those 6 facts and then making inference. Let me go ahead and do that. So let me go ahead and do write the information here. So we have A, B, C, D, E. So we need to have DI score, WE, and either they can be qualified, and then they could be recruited after they are qualified. And we have okay, one table is created. So now it's about filling the data accurately without any error. Let's go ahead and do that. We have 816. Okay, so there we have all the data in place. Now the first step is to kind of, without looking at any of the 6, from all this information that we have so far, can we make some deductions? Let's go ahead and do that. Now the few deduction that is possible is in terms of those who are going to be qualified. We don't know about A. We know for sure that B is not going to be qualified, therefore B is not going to be recruited, and C is not going to be qualified, and therefore C is not going to be recruited. D, it is possible that D is qualified. E in this case is definitely going to be qualified. We don't know whether E will be recruited, but definitely he will be qualified. F is not going to be qualified, therefore F is not going to be recruited. G, that is possible. H, it is possible. I, it is possible. And we have J, but is definitely going to be qualified because he's got at least 14 in 2 of the sections. So whether we don't, obviously J will be recruited. And we can have certain things where we can put, in the case of C, E and F, we can actually put the total. Let's go ahead and do that. C is double of DI, that is 38 plus 12 is 50 plus 4 is 38 plus 12 is 50 plus 4 is 54. That's that score. And let's look at E double, that is 24, double of 12, 24 plus 16 is 40, 40 plus 18 is 58. And let's look at this, 30 plus 17 should be equal to 47. So we have those 3 values done. So that's all the information that we have without looking at any additional information. Now let's look at this is information and makes sense. Number 1, no 2 candidates have the same composite score, so which means all these scores are different. That would mean that the total score cannot be 54, cannot be 58, or cannot be 47. So that's for sure, because all the 3 scores, those 3 scores are taken. Let's look at number 2. Ajay has a unique highest score in WE. This is the highest. We already see 18. It has to be unique and it has to be highest. So WE score of Ajay will be either 90 or 20. So in Ajay's case, WE score will be either 19 or 20. And if that is the case, one thing that we know for now sure is that whether it is 19 or 20, that's a score that is greater than 14. 16 is already greater than 14. So Ajay is going to qualify. We don't know whether he's going to be recruited, but definitely he's going to be qualified. Now let's look at his total score. So we have 8, double of 8 is 16. 16 plus 16 is 32. So if it is 19, that will be 51. If it is 20, it will be 52. The total score of Ajay can be either 51 and 52. Let's leave it at that and wait for other inferences to draw. Alright, let's look at the third one. Among the 4 recruited, Geeta had the lowest composite score. Couple of things. Geeta is recruited, which means Geeta has qualified, and this is the lowest composite score. And therefore whatever is the score here has to be now greater than or equal to 14, because we have 114 and 16. This score must be greater than or equal to 14. So we'll keep that in mind. So another is, in Geeta's case, the WE score is now greater than or equal to 14, and the total score is the lowest among those people who are recruited, right? And statement number 4, Indu was recruited. So Indu, to be recruited, Indu had to be qualified, which means this score and this score must be greater than or equal to 14. And let's look at fifth condition. Danish, Harini and Indu scored the same marks in GA. So whatever, so this is GA. So we have D, H and I, they score the same mark in GA. So I'm going to put a dot there to indicate that these 3 scores are one and the same. And let's look at the 6th case. Indu and Jatin scored 100% in exactly one section, and Jatin's composite score was 10 more than Indu. Let's go one by one. Indu and Jatin scored 100% in exactly one section. So Jatin has got now only one slot. For it to be 100%, this has to be a value of 20. So double of 20 is 40. 40 plus 30 is 70. This total is 70. And it's also given that Jatin's composite score was 10 more than Indu. If it's 70, this is going to be equal to 60. Okay, few inferences we could draw straight here. So it's, if 60 would have got recruited, 70 will also get recruited. So it's a fact that now Jatin has to be recruited. Great. The number 2 is that Indu also scored 100% in exactly one section. Now either this is a 20 or that is a 20. Now if you quickly look at it, And now this cannot take the value which is 20 because the total is only 60. So if double the DI score is 20 plus 8 is double the DI score is 40 actually. 20 times 2 is 40. 40 plus 8 is 48. To get to 60 we need a 12. So that will disqualify Indu. Now the Indu is actually qualified, in fact actually recruited as well. So which means that case of 20 is not possible a DI score. Therefore 20 has to be the score which is for the GA score. Now 20 plus 8 is 28. To get to 60 we need 32 more. So the double the DI score is 32. The DI score in this case is 16. Now we know that this value and this value is one and the same. So therefore we now know that this is equal to 20 and that's equal to 20. If now that is equal to 20, we'll get the total score of D as well. A couple of things we can infer. For number one, D is now going to be qualified. And the total score is double of 8 is 16. 16 plus 15 is 16 plus 15, 31 plus 20 would be equal to 51. Now that score is now 51. Now that's what we could make out from here. Let's make more and more inference. We have to get the value. We have these two data about A and G. We have to make sense of those two things, right? Now there are some more scores that we cannot have. We cannot have a score of 51 now. We cannot have a score of 60, or we cannot have a score of 70. Now we cannot have a score of 51. We already inferred that the two possibility for the total score of A is either 51 and 52. Now given the fact that 51 is not possible, which means 19 is not possible, the total score here had to be 52, and here we have a score therefore about 20. Okay, now let's look at the whole story of G. We know that G was recruited and also the lowest composite score. Now we don't have to worry about B because it's for sure that B has not qualified at all. We probably will have to make worry about H a bit. Okay, whether H is going to be recruited, right? Now even if H gets a score of 20 here, that's a maximum we can get. The total score is going to be 50. Now there are others who has got 51, 52, 58, quite a few people who are scored much more than 50. Therefore H is not in play at all. H is never going to get recruited, irrespective of how much ever E gets in WE. H is not going to be recruited. Now we know that we already have a Jatin who has got the highest score now among the people who has a score of 70. We have got an I who's got a score of 60. We know that G is going to be the last. There is just place for one more person. That person has to be E because E is the one who scored 58. That's a third best score. So E would have a score of 58 and he is the one who is now recruited. So therefore rest of them is not going to get recruited at all. Now let's look at what can be the value of G therefore. Okay, G. Now the next best score of people who got selected, next best score of people who got selected is a score of 52. The next best score of people who got selected is a score of 52, which means G has to necessarily get more than 52 for sure. Now let's look at what is the score of G. We have 14 and 6. Double of 14 is 28. 28 plus 6, 34. So whatever is the score here, that score has 34 plus that score there, X should be now greater than 52. So therefore X has to be greater than 18. Okay, so which means X can either take the value which is 19 or X can take the value which is 20. Now mind you, if X takes the value which is 19, that total score will be equal to 53, and X takes the value which is 20, the total score will be equal to 54. Now 54 is a score that is not allowed anymore. Therefore the only possibility is that X takes the value 19 and the total score now is 53. Now those are the deduction that we can make. We don't know about the story of B. We don't know about the story of H. There could be a lot of conditions where we can actually think of what possible score that B can take. We could probably start thinking those lines. For instance, can B take the value which is 20? Now that total will be double of 20 is 40. 40 plus 20 is 60. Now 60 is taken. The B cannot take the value which is 20, and so on and so forth. But we will do those extra bit of deduction if the question asks us to do. So this is a basic thing that we have to solve the questions. Let's look at the first question now. Which of the following it says must be true. We are looking at something that it must be true. Jatin's composite score was more than Danish. Jatin's composite score, which is 17, is more than Danish. That is something that must be true. The first one must be true, which means only 2 and both 2 and 3 goes. So we just have to evaluate. So which means 3 cannot be the answer. From the answer choice, we can anyway check. Jatin scored more than Indu in GA. So which is not the case anyways. That is a false statement. And the second statement is Indu scored less than Chetana and DI. Indu scored less than Chetana in DI, which is true. Chetana scored 19, Indu scored 16, and this is information that we can solve without doing any more further inferences, and therefore this question is fine. But when you look at question number 2, which of the statement must be false, and you look at these answer choices, we see that in the 3 answer choices Bala is involved. So we have to make some sense about what is happening with respect to the score. So the good the sensible thing to do is check for 2 and hope that that is the answer. If that's the answer, we don't have to work with Bala. If that's not the answer, then we'll have to make additional deductions using Bala with the score of DI or Bala, and then make further inferences. Let's start with the second one and check if that is something that is false. Harni's composite score is less than Falak, and we have to look at whether it is false. So we check whether it is possible that thing can be true. If it is possible that the thing can be true, then we have to eliminate the answer choice. So we know that Falak's score is 47. Harini can be less. For example, this can be simply 1 or any value. So this can be definitely be less. Harini's score can be less than Falak. It is not necessary, but it can be. But the question is, which of the following must be false? So we have to eliminate our answer choice number 2. Hence, now we are forced to deal with Bala. Okay, let's look at what the story with Bala. So, like I said, that this is this Bala score is X for DI. And then we know that its total score is going to be equals to Bala's total score is going to be equal to therefore 2x plus 20. Okay, let's look at certain value that X can take, and that's a total score of Bala. So that's a DI score. So obviously if it's going to take the value which is 20, this is going to be equal to 60. Now that is not possible because we already have a 60. And if it's going to take a value which is 19, and then 20 times 19 is 38 plus 2 is 58, and that's going to be a problem. We already have a 58. And if he's going to take the score which is 18, double of 18 is 36. 36 plus 20 is 56. That's possible. So the highest score that Bala can take is for DI is 18. The highest total score he can take is 56. So that is at least possible so far. Now let's look at these 3 statements. Chetana scored more than Bala and DI. Chetana score is 19. Bala's highest score is going to be 18. Maximum possible score is 18. So that's a true statement. Eliminate that. Bala's composite score was less than Esther. Esther's score is 56. Bala's composite score is definitely going to be less than Esther, but that's the highest possible score is 56. That's a true statement. We have to eliminate that, and therefore answer choice is 4. Bala's scored same as Jatin in DI. Jatin's score is 20. Bala cannot score 20 because the total will become 60, and that violates a condition there, right? So which means here the answer choice is 4. And now that we have got some story with respect to Bala, the next question talks about what is the maximum score Bala could have scored in DI. Okay, so we could work with the same piece of information, and then hopefully we'll get the answer. Let's go and check what is happening here. If all the candidates except Ajay and Dinesh had different marks in DI. Now Ajay's marks is 8 and Dinesh's marks is 8, so everything else is going to be now different. And Bala's composite score was less than Chetana's composite score. Now Chetana's composite score is 54. Now Bala's score is now less than 54. Now we have worked till 56. Now this is not going to be useful now. We'll have to rework the whole story again. We know that here that Bala can get to a score of 18. Now we'll have to get to 50, less than 56. So we know that Bala's score is 2x plus 20. That's a total score. And we are now looking at the score of X. Now for it to be less than 54, the X cannot now take the value 17 because that'll make it exactly 54. So that's not possible. So is it possible that it's a 16? That the 16 is gone because somebody's already taken the score of 16. Then we have 14. Then you have the 15, 14. Then the maximum possible score now is going to be equal to 13. So it will be 13, and the 2 times that is 26, and total will be 46. Now 46 is possible. We have a 47. We are lucky, and the highest score is equal to 13. Number 4, if all candidates score different marks in WE, all candidates score different marks in WE. So we have 20, we have 19, we have 18, we don't have 17, we have 16, we have 15, we don't have 14, and so obviously there will be a lot of these 14 and so on and so forth. Then the question is, then what is the maximum marks Harini could have scored in WE? The maximum mark Harini, then let's check for 14. In Harini's case, if this is X, if Harini's total score will be 10 plus 20 is 30 plus X. And if X, the value is 17, this will be equal to 47. Now 47 is a problem, so that is 17 is not the case. Now the next best score that he can have is 14. If this is 14, this will be equal to 44. Yup, so 44 is possible, so this answer is for 14. Now if you actually look at this particular set of questions, look, quite a few deductions need to be done. It's not that it's difficult, but it's definitely time consuming, and you could make silly mistakes here, so you have to be very careful when you solve questions like this. Thank you.